Welcome back to Andersen Acres. We're in the kitchen again, and today we are going to make toasted oat bread. I love toasted oat bread. I love the nuttiness, the depth of flavor, and you get that depth of flavor by toasting your oats first. So we have a half a cup of oats, and we have a tablespoon of oats. What we need to do is we need to toast those because you're not going to get that depth of flavor if they're just like this. You can, of course, make breads where you don't toast them. We do that a lot. This particular bread, you must toast the oats. So to do that, we're going to get our cookie sheet. Okay, we're just going to move these guys out of the way so you can see. I'm going to take our cookie sheet. I'm using this smaller liner on top of the bigger liner. This way I can just pick up my oats when they're done, fold this, and dump them back into the bowl. So just get an easy way to get them off your pan because it's kind of annoying. So just figure out an easy way to do it. So we're going to put our half cup of oats on here. And we're going to add our tablespoon of oats. It's fine to add our tablespoon of oats. We will take that tablespoon back out when the oats are toasted. And we're going to set it aside. But for now, they can be mixed together. So we just spread this out, and we're going to bake this for 10 minutes at 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Let your oven heat fully because you do want 350 degrees completely for full effect for nice toasty oats. So just spread them evenly around the pan. It's not that hard. So then we're just going to stick these in the oven at 350 degrees Fahrenheit for 10 minutes. Then we will continue on with our recipe. So our oats have now been toasted. You can see they look much browner. They're also really hot. So you want to let these cool, not really hot, they've been cooling a few minutes. They'll cool more in the next few. But you want to let them cool before you use them. Remember, you're going to take a tablespoon out because this is for the topping. Put that aside. You're not going to need it for a couple hours probably until you're mixed and your second rise is complete. And I just made a mess. That's okay. You're also actually going to put this aside because you're not going to add this right this second. So set this aside as well. Just know that you have now toasted your oats and you're good to go. Let's make the actual bread dough. I'm using my bread maker. You can use your hands. You can do it with a mixer. It doesn't matter. This recipe is not at all picky. I'm going to do it in the bread maker because I also have another bread that I'm making by hand this morning. So just to streamline it, one's going in the bread maker. First ingredient, 3 tablespoons of butter. You can use margarine. This bread is not picky. The defining flavor is the oats, the toasted oat. So it's totally fine to use a butter instead. Margarine or butter, it doesn't matter. 1 egg, 1 full egg. Just plop it in there, doesn't matter. I'm using 1 cup of milk, but you can use water as well. You can use buttermilk if you like. This is not a picky bread at all. So butter or margarine, milk or water, doesn't matter. Teaspoon of salt, any salt, doesn't matter. 1/4 cup of sugar. Seems like a lot of sugar, but you need it to complement the oats. You want 3 cups of all-purpose flour. Practicing not spilling. So, there we go. 3 cups of just regular white flour. Then you want a heaping teaspoon of yeast. You're going to notice I did not put the half cup of oats in. They're still sitting here. I'm not going to put them in right now. If you're making this dough by hand, do not add the oats until you're kneading, until the water has been incorporated, because these are nice, freshly toasted oats. We do not want them falling into the water and getting all gooey. We like this toastiness. So if you're doing it by hand or using your mixer, you don't add these until you're starting to knead. You incorporate all your ingredients first, then add these to a dough that's fairly firm. I'm going to use my bread maker. You may have a bread maker with a fruit and nut dispenser. Use that for these. If you don't, you might have a bread maker that beeps at a certain mark, and that tells you to add fruit and nuts. That's when you should add these. If you don't have either of those and you're using your bread maker, set a 10-minute timer, then add these. Either way, do not add these directly. You wait until most of the dough is incorporated. So set a 10-minute timer, then add these guys, just so that the toastiness still remains, because these are delicious now. We don't want them sitting in the water or falling into the water as the dough mixes. So wait to add those just for a few minutes. We're going to put this in the bread maker. I'm going to set a 10-minute timer to add my oats. Then we'll come back after the first rise is complete because we don't really have to check on it in between. By now, if you've watched any of my videos, you know how to do a first rise. So we're not going to be too concerned about that. We will come back when it's time to shape our loaf. All right, so our dough has finished its first rise. You can see I incorporated those oats. It's a fantastic, fantastic bread. So what we're going to do is prep our pan. Yes, I'm using a glass pan today. It has nothing to do with the dough. The dough will bake in a silicone pan or a metal pan. It doesn't matter. But my silicone pan has something else in it right now, rising. So we're going to use a glass pan today. Not for any reason at all. So we're just going to spray it with cooking spray. You can instead, if you don't like using cooking spray, you can do a little bit of butter and flour to keep this from sticking. But you do want to keep it from sticking, especially in glass, because things stick really badly on glass. This is in no way non-stick. So I'm just using a canola oil spray. You can use whatever you like. You can line it with parchment paper, whatever you would like to do. Just don't line it with wax paper. Wax paper burns. So now we're going to take our dough. We're going to punch all the air out of it. And you can see there's an air bubble right there. You want to just push those all out. You don't want your air bubbles being trapped inside your bread. Then you can shape your loaf any way you like. All right, you can roll it out and then roll it up. You can just squish it. It doesn't matter. There's no right or wrong for forming loaves. Just make sure your top is fairly smooth. So I'm pinching all the excess on the bottom so that the top of my loaf is fairly smooth. Then I'm just going to stick it in the pan. So you just kind of make sure it's the right size. Stick in the pan. No big deal. Just like that. So we're going to set that aside to rise for about 45 minutes. Then we will come back, mix our topping, and bake our bread. That was a cat. Sorry. All right, so our dough has risen. So this is going to be our toasted oat bread. Now what we have to do is do our topping. So we're going to need an egg. Yes, I broke the yolk already. I do that a lot. Doesn't matter. We're smashing it up anyway. So you want to take an egg. Use your basting brush to just kind of beat the heck out of it. You don't need to use a separate whisk because you can just use, I use my silicone basting brushes, so they're fine. You do not have to use a whisk if you're using a silicone basting brush because you just, and then it's fine. If you're having a little bit of a problem, your egg's not runny enough, you can add a tablespoon of water, but mine is fine. So we're just going to take our egg wash, brush that on here. Be generous, but don't be gloppy. So I want enough that it gets down on the sides of the bread, but not so much that you have chunks of egg sitting, because that's not attractive and it's not going to bake well. So that's it. That's all we need. Now we take our tablespoon of reserved toasted oats and we just start sprinkling them. Use the entire tablespoon full of oats. So I'm just tapping right now, just so I don't end up with a glut in any one spot. Take your time, sprinkle them well, get them down the sides. Remember, your bread will continue to rise when it's in the oven, so you do want to make sure you get the sides, or you're only going to have toasted oat on the very top. And you do want slightly toasted oats on your sides too. All right, there we go. That's looking pretty good. So what we're going to do now is put this in the oven, 375 degrees Fahrenheit for about 25 to 30 minutes. Check it at 25 minutes because everyone's oven is a little bit different. Mine will probably be done in 25 minutes. You might need 30 minutes. So remember, 375, 25 to 30 minutes. All right, so our toasted oat bread was in the oven for 30 minutes this time. It changes a little bit based on the humidity in the house, how long I have to bake it. So it baked for 30 minutes. It's looking fantastic. It's been sitting in the pan for about 10 minutes. So we're just going to carefully remove it from the pan and let it sit. I like to rest them on their sides. Let that sit. And when it's cool, we can slice it. But in the meantime, we just get to watch it. Don't cut this one too early. So that's what it looks like. It'll be absolutely delicious. As an alternative to the egg wash, you can add a little honey into your egg and brush that on top and then do the toasted oats. That'll give you a honey toasted oat bread. That is also delicious. But for now, we're just doing regular toasted oats. So I hope you enjoyed baking toasted oat bread with us today. If you want to see more of these videos, don't forget to subscribe, and we will see you tomorrow.